Welcome back to another episode of the Outsider Sports Baseball Podcast. Corey Jason, John Pauline here with you, ready to get going because we had the third no hitter of the season happen since we last spoke. John, Mr. Short Game himself, Mr. Can't Go Past 6 innings, Blake Snell threw a no hitter and a 3-0 win over the Reds in Cincinnati. This was the first time in his career he went into the ninth inning as the pitcher. He's never pitched into the ninth inning before,
Ever.
ever. But he's done it.
That's crazy.
But he's done it now through a no hitter. August 2nd. That was Friday. It's kind of crazy, especially because he had, waited so long to get into the season, was a free agent for a while, didn't get picked up by the Giants until well into spring training, thought he was going to get a massive deal, didn't. Then his name was being thrown around at the trade deadline as a possible target. What did you think when you heard that he threw this no hitter?
I looked at I was like looking and then I had to look again and I'm like no, I was like, no way.
It's
Because
kind
like
of
he
crazy.
yeah, but I mean he's a good pitcher. I mean it's
Great
surprising
pitcher.
but not surprising because like he's a good pitcher.
Yeah,
Like
for
he's
sure.
one of the best pitchers in baseball right now. And you just but he doesn't like you said, he just doesn't go past like 6 innings.
No, he doesn't. And it's nice to see him do this. He's a guy I root for. I liked him. When I went to the World Series in 2020, it was right around that time where he got pulled. I flew out to Texas. 'Cause I was bored with some friends and we had nothing better to do. Watched the Dodgers and Rays. Got a pod for ourselves. And it wasn't the game he pitched, but we saw Tony Gonsolin pitch for the Dodgers. But it was right around that time where he got pulled after like 5 innings, 4 innings when he was rolling by Kevin Cash. And just talking to the fans of the Rays at the time, they loved him. They thought he could go deeper. They don't know why he was never let to go deeper. You know, High strikeout guys. So obviously, that pitch count gets inflated. Also had some injury issues and concerns, but I don't know. His talent has always really put him, head and shoulders above a lot of other players. And I'm happy he saw this. I hope he opts out and gets a big payday because he deserves it. I just hope he stays out of any team that has anything to do with the Yankees in their market.
You don't want him going, you don't want the Yankees having to play against him.
I do not want to see Blake Snell. I saw him for years at the Rays. I'll pass on that. But we were talking about these teams that are doing well, and the Giants are, not necessarily in the playoffs, but they're in the hunt. A couple teams that are in the playoffs, I want to get kind of gauge your feelings on now that we're, into August. There's about 2 months left of the season. Things are going to really, really start heating up. The Dodgers. What comes to your mind when you hear the Dodgers and how you think they're going to fare?
I mean, the first thing comes to mind is like they're like probably the most expensive team in baseball. I mean,
Yeah,
you think star power, you think how many stars do they have on their team now? I mean, like, and they were really active on the trade deadline. I mean, you got Shohei Freeman. I mean, Mookie Betts is going to be coming back. I mean, you just think that this is a team that just like they just have all the good players, they have all the money, and it's just like. But the big question is not if they're going to make the playoffs or anything, because I feel like that's a lock at this point. It's the question is like how far are they going to go in the
right.
playoffs when they get there? That's what I think. That's the
They
question. Is
always seem to falter off. Getting hopefully Freddie Freeman back now that his son is out of the hospital. Max Freeman was dealing with a lot of issues, and Freddie had to step away from the team. But now that his son's back home, hopefully Freddie rejoins. The Dodgers, I just think, are a team that's built to not last in the postseason. None of these super teams ever seem to go the distance. Adding Kevin Kiermaier and Jack Flaherty and all the players that they did bring in to kind of bolster that team. I just don't know if the Dodgers can do it. They've never really done it outside of the COVID shortened 2020 season. They always seem to have this great roster, this great team, and this is certainly not the best team or the second best or the third best team that the Dodgers have had, in this recent stretch of, the last decade. I find it hard to believe that this is even top 5 in terms of talent on their team. Now you can say that's kind of crazy because they have Mookie Betts and Shohei Ohtani, but Ohtani's not pitching. I just feel like their roster isn't as well-rounded as it has been in the past with like a younger Justin Turner when they had Corey Seager. They had Trey Turner for a little bit. They had, Manny Machado for a little bit.
They had like MVP Bellinger,
Jock Peterson, even going back to Matt Kemp and Andre Ethier. I feel like their teams are a little bit more well-rounded than they are now. And I just think that the Dodgers are a prime team to get overhyped going into the playoffs and then kind of falling off. Meanwhile, you have probably the 1A to the Dodgers 1B in the National League, and that's the Phillies, who, the brooms were brought out last week when the Yankees visited. Always love seeing Philly, in their tiers.
That was a close game. I mean, they just think they couldn't capitalize on the Yankees' mistakes. It's like the Yankees are trying to hand them the win, and they just couldn't. they couldn't, win that game.
Jazz Chisholm Jr.
My theory is that they got Jazz Chisholm. He's former Marlins player. Phillies cannot beat the Marlins to save their life, and I feel like if you didn't have him on your team, different series. I'm convinced sure. It's just because he was a former Marlins, so it's like it carried over.
I mean, you have Mark Leiter Jr. coming in. He flew in that same day to pitch against the Phillies that night. Pitched 2 innings somehow. He's been a joy to watch. He's got some great movement on his pitches. But the Phillies are in a tough stretch right now. They were so good and they were so much better than every other team for so long that now they kind of seem to have faltered a little bit. Are you concerned?
No, not in the slightest. I mean, like you knew this was going to happen. Like I thought it was going to happen after that London series, but somehow they still managed to play 500 baseball during that stretch, and then got back in the groove. And then they got beat up on by Oakland right before the All-Star break, and then Suarez goes down, and
right,
that hurts you. And then you come back off All-Star break, and everyone's just kind of not hitting. I mean, the biggest thing is like Harper. Harper just hasn't been hitting. I think he started hitting the last game. He threw together a few hits, and I think he got his 3,000th base.
That's pretty impressive.
I think, yeah. But he's starting to hit again, so we'll see with this next series against the Dodgers. How they do. It's an away series,
right?
So, and they are kind of not great, on the road. But if they can, at least win the series here, maybe they'll be back on track. But I'm not worried, and I'd rather them slide here than later.
You want to hear a crazy stat about Bryce Harper? Bryce Harper is only about 32 home runs ahead of Aaron Judge in terms of career home runs. Bryce Harper was a rookie in 2012. Judge was a rookie in 2017.
Aaron Judge has the power. He has that power.
Bryce Harper's got the power.
I feel like Bryce Harper is more streaky.
Judge's first half this season were almost identical numbers to when Harper won the MVP.
Yeah, but I feel like Judge does that almost every season. It really feels like it. I mean,
we'll talk Judge in a little bit. I want to save that because I want to stick to the Phillies, give them their due. But the Phillies, had a better record than every team in baseball for a while. And now the Phillies still have the best record in the National League, the most wins. But 3 teams in the American League now have more wins than the Phillies.
I mean, they just got beat up on by the American League, so it's not surprising.
Is that something that could, play tell, for October?
October's a different thing. You talk about the regular season.
By the American League now, they won't get beat by the American League.
October's a whole different thing. I mean, when you talk about how Dodgers dominate regular season, Braves dominate regular season, You come to the postseason. I mean, it's a different game in the
You just
postseason.
named 2 teams that have won a World Series in the last 5 years.
You know, it's a different game in the postseason. That
Oh, it's
doesn't worry
sure,
me.
but it just seems like we're always talking about the American League beating on the National League, yet the National League seems to win the World Series more often than the American.
Yes, it's a different game. It's like I said in the postseason. You know,
You still have a high confidence in the Phillies?
ah, I I do, I
Is it
do. I
waning a little bit?
wish I'm a little shaky on the relief pitching, because I feel like they somehow made their team worse at the trade deadline. I mean, I don't like. I feel like, because I always said their biggest need was relief pitching. Like, that's their biggest weakness. And if you look at, like, they're losing games, they're blowing like 3, 4 run leads, and these games are losing.
Right.
And they did like I think they blew like 4 or 5 3-run like leads since like in July, and it's like and it's crazy. And their thing was like, let's go trade away one of our relievers, Dominguez. I mean, granted, he wasn't great, but he's still solid. You go trade him away for, because we need a right hand to bat for some
I mean,
reason.
Austin Hayes has been pretty good.
He's been pretty decent, but it's like you trade away your reliever, and then you go and trade Estevez, which was good. So you kind of, swap Dominguez for a right hand bat, and then replace him with Estevez. Fine, but then you trade away Soto for a pitching prospect. It is
Uh,
just kind of is odd. And then you trade for, I think, like a left-handed. I forget his name, but I think he's like kind of a more long reliever, and that's just weird to me. And then they didn't do anything else, and it's like I feel like they needed another arm, because I feel like their bullpen is by far
right.
their weakest thing, and they keep every if you go online, you look at all the Phillies fans, they say Phillies need more bats. They need power in the outfield, but it's like they're not losing games because they're not scoring runs. They're
But also,
losing
like,
games
who are
because
you
they're
gonna replace? Are you gonna replace, Castellanos? Are you
and
gonna replace
Castillo.
Stott? You gonna replace, I mean, who's out there? You got rid of Pache.
Yeah, and Pache got he's like, I think he's on the Marlins now.
Yeah, he is. So he's gonna
Yeah,
become a Philly killer, right?
probably. But I mean, Castellanos has been almost lights out since like the All-Star break, and even like he's been hitting. And I mean, you have Rojas in there for his defense, and he he can hit. And you have Marsh in there, who I think if you just let him bat against lefties and lefties, he eventually will hit too. But I don't know. I don't
Also,
want to mess with the thing too much, because it's like you don't want to
right.
mess the locker room up, and I think
Well,
that's part of their success is the locker room.
beyond the Dodgers and Phillies, though, is there really any other team in the National League that we think has a legitimate chance to come out of that conference or that league? Like an actual legitimate chance? Or is it really gonna be Dodgers or Phillies?
I I, I almost want to say one of the wild card teams, just because of the
No, no,
success
I'm looking for a specific team.
specific team. I want to go say I want to say the Braves or the Padres.
All right.
I
Why
I
do you say
feel
that?
like one of them, and I feel like maybe the Padres.
That would be pretty interesting. Trading away Juan Soto to make it all the way to the World Series on the backs of Kyle Higashioka and Michael King.
I just think so. I mean, because I mean, when the past teams, like, you don't need, like, look at all the teams that made, I mean, the World Series in the past couple of years.
Yeah.
I mean, Phillies. I mean, when they made the World Series, I mean, I thought the season was over. Like, when they fired Gerard, like, I thought it was done.
Girardi was doing that game against Philly for the Yankees on their broadcast network.
Was
He was. It was really funny.
he wasn't a bad manager. He just wasn't the manager the Phillies needed at the time.
No, he's very well liked because the
Yeah,
Yankees, a lot of Yankee fans feel like he was
yeah.
unfairly fired after the 2017 season.
So,
He played for the Yankees, won a World Series with the Yankees. So we have a different type of appreciation for Joe Girardi.
yeah.
But he was talking, and he loves Harper. As Harper's coach, nothing but great things to say about Harper. Just he didn't seem to have a lot of hatred for the Phillies. Definitely a little touchy here and there about them winning. But Rob Thompson, was his bench coach. Rob Thompson came with him from the Yankees. So like he's rooting for his guy, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But now flipping to the American League teams, it seems it's a lot more wide open than just the two National League teams that you can feel confident in.
Yeah.
You have the Yankees, the Orioles, the Guardians, the Astros. I think those are really the 4 teams that have the best shot to make the World Series, and that's a lot of teams.
That's yeah.
Who do you have the most confidence in out of that group?
You know what I'm gonna say.
Of course, you're going to say the Guardians because you're going to try to throw me for a loop.
I like the Orioles though.
Why?
I really
Do you really feel their pitching is stable enough?
I do. I mean, all you really need are like
Or are you picking the Orioles because you think the Phillies can beat them the best out of all the teams?
I don't. I just think I feel like the
Orioles,
Orioles.
Phillies, who are you rooting for?
Oh, Phillies all the way. I mean, I have all the way.
Phillies and how many?
What did I put down? What did I put? What did I put down in the? Because that was my pick for the thing was Phillies Orioles, Phillies winning it, and I forget what
tell
I
you.
what I how many I said, but that was my pick. So I mean, if I'm gonna stay true to my pick about who I think has the thing, I'm gonna stay with the Orioles here.
I guess I want to say the Yankees. It would make me feel really good if the Yankees won. But I think it's still Houston's league to lose. They've come on strong as of late. I picked Houston. Yeah, they're just so good. If the Yankees have any shot to win, they got to get past Houston. So let's look at the Yankees to start. How do you feel about how they're playing? You just watched them play your Phillies. They've won 4 series in a row. They've kind of gotten out of that rut, it seems, that they were in for a while. They are now tied for the best record in baseball with Baltimore and Cleveland. All these teams, have 67 wins. Cleveland does have 44 losses to the Yankees and Orioles 46, so Cleveland is ahead of them slightly. But that's only a 1-game differential. So, one out of those 3 teams, who hits 70 wins first? I'll tell you who they're all playing in the next 5 games.
Yeah, let me see. Yeah, tell me.
So the Guardians are playing Arizona and Minnesota.
Okay.
Baltimore is playing Toronto and Tampa Bay,
Okay.
while the Yankees play the Angels and the Rangers. So knowing that,
Ooh.
who's more likely to get 3 more wins before the other 2?
You know what? Probably the Yankees. Because I
That's
just feel
right.
like that. I just feel like that Angels series right there. Because I feel like that's an easy sweep.
It makes me happy that the
And I feel
Yankees
like
are
the
very
Orioles.
likely to get their
Yeah.
81st win before the month of August is up, because it took us to the last series of the year to win our 81st and 82nd game. And do you know when the last time the Yankees went under 500 was?
Was it? I feel like
Well,
this
here.
was it was a
When
while
was the
ago.
last time the Phillies had a losing record in the season?
A losing record?
Right. A losing record.
I don't even know if I remember, but if I had to guess, probably sometime in like I probably like not too far off. Like I would say
Well, if you had to take a guess, when was the
oh,
last time the Philadelphia Phillies had a losing record?
2019.
In 2019, the Phillies were 81 and 81. That's a winning record.
I
Or
was
that's
I was
that's a that's a 500 record,
that's
so
a
that's not
even.
losing. So if we go back 23, they had 90 wins. 22, they had 87. 21, they had 82. We can say 2020 that they were under 500, but I don't really want to count that. I don't think that's fair.
Yeah, that's not a full
So
season.
2018, they were 80 and 82.
Okay, so I was off by a year.
So what do you think with the Yankees?
I want to see 2002.
The Yankees in 2002, you think they had a losing record?
Let's say yeah.
You sure?
I think I feel like it's sometime in the early 2000s.
In 2000, I know the answer.
You know the answer. Yeah, I
Look,
feel like I know the answer too.
in 2002, the Yankees won 103 games.
That's definitely not it.
The correct answer, 1992. They
Oh,
won
so I got the two
76.
part right.
They won 76 games.
And ever since then, they just winning record.
Winning record. Now, they were above 500 in the strike shortened seasons. And then after that, their worst season in terms of wins was last season with 82 wins.
Was it something that they didn't that they the last time they missed a playoff game was like in the 2000s or something I was getting mixed up with?
I mean, so the last time they missed the playoffs was obviously last year,
Yeah. But I
and
mean
then
before that was
prior
it
to
like
that was 2016.
I don't know. For some reason I thought something like earlier in the 2000s with the Yankees. I don't know what I was thinking about.
That was the last time they won a World Series was the 2000s,
Maybe that's what I was thinking about.
2009.
Yeah, that would that yeah.
The Yankees
That was
have been 500, or that Yankees haven't had a losing season. They haven't been under 500 since the season they drafted Derek Jeter.
mm,
Not when he debuted, when they drafted him was the last time that they were under 500. John, it's been 32 years since they had a losing record.
you guys are you're spoiled.
Spoiled. I want a World Series. I want a World Series.
I feel like there's
I was
certain
11 the
teams that
last time they won.
I feel like I feel like there are teams right now of fans that would kill for a winning season.
Yeah, but that's not my problem that they don't have their sights set on something greater. We celebrate winning seasons because winning seasons get you closer to the playoffs. But the Yankees, they're playing better. I need to see more. Their lineup is lengthened. Stanton's back. They have Chisholm. Austin Wells has been the best offensive catcher in baseball since the beginning of June. Better than Adley Rutschman. Better numbers. Anthony Volpe, since the All-Star break, has been playing phenomenal.
What about Gleyber Torres?
Gleyber's been hitting and playing well.
Didn't they bench him?
They benched him. He didn't run hard on a line drive to left field.
I see trouble brewing with that and them adding.
Oh no, not at all.
No, you don't think so?
He's a free agent at the end of the year. He knows his second base job is his. Jazz is our third baseman. He started running hard after he got benched. They pulled him out, and now every time he puts the ball in play, the 2 games since then, he's booked it. But the Yankees, they have a shot. I think that they have a very possible shot. But the Orioles, they scare me, but their pitching is super suspect. Do you not think so?
I mean, it is. It's not the greatest, but I feel like you looked at Arizona last year, and I felt like their pitching. I felt like I felt like their pitching wasn't fantastic, and they had some guys turn into like aces during the playoffs against the Phillies. Like Brandon Pfaadt stunk the whole season. He had like a 5 ERA the whole season. Comes in the playoffs like
Right.
fantastic. So I mean, you know, it's something to be worried about, but it's not like nail in the coffin kind of thing, and that you should like count them out just
Right.
because of it.
And then what about Cleveland? Do you think they're a team that could really actually fare well in the postseason?
I just feel like they're not. I feel like I feel like if you ask somebody like who's a star player on Cleveland, I feel like people would be hard pressed to name somebody.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
mean,
yes,
except like I feel like you got like one or two guys that are name worthy, and then after that, it's just like I just feel like you have like a lot of solid players, but I don't think you have anyone that you can like kind of like you don't have that
right.
that
No
strong
star power.
that strong yeah,
Although Steven Kwan, Jose Ramirez,
there's yeah.
Josh and Bo Naylor, I believe, are phenomenal players. Andres Jimenez is a really good player too. I think Cleveland they're a team that just seems like they'll have a strong regular season, but when the lights shine the brightest, they might falter. But
Yeah,
as I'm saying that, they also just might knock the Yankees out in 4 games or 3 games, whatever it is, and sweep them out of the playoffs. So who knows?
I mean they might, but I just feel like you look at the Yankees and you look at their lineup compared to like other like you have like they Yankees have such a scary lineup
Yeah, it
with
scares
that
me too.
it's scary.
It scares me. As a fan, seeing that lineup every day, how is this going to go wrong?
I don't think about that. I mean, like you see Judge and Soto batting next to each other, like it scares me.
I was at the Yankee game versus the Blue Jays on Sunday, right? They would intentionally walk Judge 3 times.
I saw that after. Then he hit like
I'm there. I want to see Judge. That's what I pay for my ticket to go see. I pay to see Aaron Judge and Juan Soto, and you're taking the bat out of Judge's hands. Now, taking a step back, it makes way too much sense to do that. You know, you're trying to win a game, and strategically, it works. It makes sense.
I mean, the Blue Jays are trying to keep that,
I
rivalry
want to
they
see
have.
Judge hit a home run. Judge is 2 home runs away from hitting number 300. I was hoping between me going to that game or the first game in the Angels
You might
series
catch it.
that I would catch it. But if they're just going to keep intentionally walking him, we're not going to see it till next year. He's not going to be able to swing the bat ever. So it's kind of just frustrating as a fan, but as a baseball, strategist, somebody who tries to understand the game as best as he could, it makes sense. But going on though to the Astros is our last really American League team to key in on. They scare me. Kyle Tucker's hurt, but he should hopefully be back at some point this year for them. Yordan Alvarez, I think, outside of Judge and Ohtani, is the next pure hitter in baseball. They scare me. They're the team to beat. I don't care who's in the playoffs, who's not good. You don't deserve to win the World Series if you can't beat the Astros, and the Astros are the team to beat. I don't care if they're the third wild card. They're the team that needs to be taken care of.
I don't think that just the Astros don't feel like the Astros of like the past couple of years this year.
They
I
don't,
don't they just don't feel
but they
like it.
still are them.
I don't know. It feels like they lost something. They just don't seem like the same team. I don't know if it's like I don't know what it is, but they just don't feel like the same Astros.
They're not the same. It doesn't have the same feeling.
No, but I mean, I don't know if you can still say they're the team to beat though. Especially because they got knocked out last year and they haven't been playing this great this year. I mean, I don't know if they're the team to beat. I mean, they might be the team to beat for the Yankees,
The
but I don't
Yankees,
know if they're
we
like
can
the
knock out the
team to beat.
Astros in the playoffs. I would feel a lot more comfortable about thinking they might actually win a World Series. But if we don't face the Astros, or we don't, we're not the team that knocks them down, or we lose to them. Obviously, we're not winning the World Series if we lose to them. But if we don't play them, I just feel a lot less confident going into the next series. Are there any other teams though in the American League that you think can kind of come out and win it? Like, does Boston really get you going? Minnesota, Seattle.
I mean, we talk about how like the American League just beats up in the National League like regular season kind of stuff, but it's like none of the teams like outside of the Guardians, Orioles, Yankees really scream. And maybe I guess the Astros, I guess you want to throw them in there, really scream that
Right.
they're gonna go all the way and cause problems.
I really think that the American League is a lot more wide open than the National League is.
I mean, maybe you get a fun one with the Royals.
That wouldn't be fun for me.
I mean, I think maybe you get a fun run with the Royals, or maybe the Mariners decide they want to have offense all of a sudden. Like an offense, I don't know, but
Yeah.
I feel like there's some pretty clear teams in the American League that I don't know if you're gonna see too many any surprise or
Right. I just hope it's the Yankees and I hope they come out on top. But that remains to be seen. We still have a lot of baseball left. Speaking of, we did have that trade deadline pass. We talked about the deals last week. But now that we're kind of into August, let's kind of talk about how that deadline was pretty lackluster and how that's going to affect this upcoming offseason and how the remaining, games left can kind of affect how teams handle that offseason. Like here, the White Sox, they still have Crochet and Luis Robert. The Blue Jays still have Vladdy, Bo Bichette, Kevin Gausman, Chris Bassett, Jose Berrios. These are teams that, could have moved these guys who likely aren't going to be competing for a World Series next year as much as the Blue Jays want to. The Blue Jays aren't good. They're bad. Their roster construction, as I've said for years, is horrible. They should sell.
You think they just gut the team, start over
They
kind of thing?
should. Think about how much they could have gotten for any of those starting pitchers. Think about it's such a seller's market. Think about what they could have got from the Astros or the Yankees or any team for Vladdy.
I mean, they probably could have sold him super high. I don't know why. It just seems like some of these teams just held on for no reason. I'm surprised the White Sox held on to as many guys as they
Yeah.
did.
Well, you had
'Cause
the
you
talk
think they would have
you had
just you
the
think they would just
Crochet
sell.
talk. Well, Crochet said that he won't pitch for a team in the postseason without an extension. Where like, where do you get off? You're not that good.
Why is he where's he where does he get
The
the
balls to
idea that
do
he's
that.
gonna be making these demands? Like,
Right. Well, then you also have these teams that were thought to be sellers that turned into be slight buyers or holders, like the Mets and Pete Alonso. He's a free agent. Did they really need to keep him? Astros and Alex Bregman, the Diamondbacks and Christian Walker, Boston, Tyler O'Neill. These are guys, these are teams that thought that they could be in it or, at least around being in it with guys that are on expiring contracts that they might not be able to retain.
I'm wondering if they think they didn't trade these guys. I'm wondering if they think that they're gonna re-sign them.
Right.
I
But
you'd have to think that's the reason. Because I mean, like, what other reason other than that they were asking way, way, way too much than teams are willing to give up?
well, here, let's take the Mets. The Mets, we all know, are going to be one of the top teams in the Juan Soto sweepstakes. It's likely going to be between the Yankees and Mets, which will make some fun, talk show talk in the New York market. It's going to make me go gray.
Watch it
Here,
just be the Dodgers get him anyway, like when we were talking about
young
Otani,
Cole.
and then I'm just like, just watch the Dodgers get him anyway, and
Yeah, it's just one of those things where like Soto's always been talked about as having wanting to play on the East Coast in New York specifically. Just like how Otani, everybody knew that he wanted West Coast in LA specifically. That's why he went to the Angels.
yeah.
That's why he inevitably went to the Dodgers. That he wanted West Coast LA.
But I mean, if I had to guess for Soto, he's staying with the Yankees. I mean,
Your
I
list of
don't
God's ears.
see,
I mean,
I don't see,
generational talent,
I don't see
Hall of
why he
Fame
wouldn't.
lock.
Why wouldn't he stay with the Yankees? I mean, you have Judge under, you have a good team around you, you have good players around you. I mean, I think he'd even
Yeah,
take a little less money to stay with the Yankees and
I
go to
don't
the
think he's
Mets.
taking less money. I think he's making
I
seven
he
hundred
would.
million
I'm not
dollars.
talking about a lot less money, but I'm talking about like if the Mets offer him like 10, 20 mil, like maybe 10 million, 20 million more, that he might take 10, 20 million more to stay with the Yankees.
See, I think if anything, he'll say, "Hey, the Mets are offering me this, match it, and I'm yours."
I mean, it might, but I mean, look at like player. I think like Turner was offered more money by the Padres, and he took less to be with the Phillies.
Aaron Judge was offered 400 million by the Padres, and he took 360 to stay with the Yankees.
See, so I'm just saying, like, I think Soto, and it's like,
But it's different. Trey Turner wanted to be a Philly. Aaron
I
Judge
think
wanted to be a Yankee. I think Juan Soto wants to get paid, and it's going to be the Yankees and Mets playing in for him. So, I mean, like we were saying, Alonso's a free agent. They keep Alonso if they lose Soto, but if they get Soto, then they're going to lose Alonso. I don't see them paying him. So that's kind of a risky play right there because if you do get the free agent that you covet, you could have had, a lot of prospects back for Pete Alonso. Bregman is almost surely gone from the Astros. They're gearing up for a rebuild. This year, possibly next year, will be the last 2 years of that dynasty. Diamondbacks might have been just a flash in the pan. They should have moved Christian Walker.
ah,
And then you have Boston, who their farm system's not great. I think Tyler O'Neill's not going to move the needle for anybody. So if they wanted to lock him up, I think they could have brought him back after the season and retooled a little bit in that farm system. We've seen it in the past. The Yankees did it with Aroldis Chapman, where they traded him, then signed him back. We've seen that happen. But is there going to be a surprise team that goes all in or tears it down in the offseason based off what you're going to see these next few weeks? Could we see a team like Seattle decide to tear it down if they don't think that they're good enough?
oh, that's a tough one. I mean, because I feel like they've been hanging around for a while, and they just never went over that never made it over the hump there to
If the
be really
Padres
good.
don't win it this year, could we see them fire their GM and try to
I think if
restart?
the Padres don't win it, I feel like they're gonna have to. I feel like they've used so many resources these past couple years that it's like they're basically all in right now, and if it doesn't pan out, like they're gonna have to go into like major rebuild, probably fire their GM
Exactly.
and clean house and just kind of start over. Because I mean, I don't see it, and I mean, and you almost look maybe the Astros if they just
Right.
somehow don't make it or don't do it like good
Blue
at anything,
Jays.
like maybe they just cut their losses and retool, because retool on the off season, just start over. They get there quicker. Blue Jays, I don't know, man. I feel
I
like
mean,
the
the
Blue
Blue
Jays
Jays
are
are so far
delusional.
behind the Yankees and Orioles, I think you'd admit.
Yeah, I feel like they're delusional though, because you feel like I don't know, like they it just feels delusional to me that they think they're still a good team.
Yeah.
I,
Speaking
I
of
don't
good
know.
teams, we gotta talk about the White Sox and that legendary losing streak they're on. Right now, as it stands, it's 20 games. How bad is that? They haven't won a game since before the All-Star break.
I mean, it's crazy. I mean, they saw the Bears get a win before they got a win. They saw the Bears get a win before they got a win. I mean, it's crazy. I don't know. And it's like they have some good players on their team too. Like you think with like some of the, like the at least you think with like, you have one good pitcher, like you at least
Right.
would get a one win somewhere in that 20 game span. But it's like impressive. And at this point, like they have to be going like all in on a win because you don't want to break that record. You don't want to go any further. But I mean,
It's
they're
just
on track to
bad.
be one of the worst teams ever in MLB history.
Weren't we talking about that before the season, how bad they were gonna be?
I believe so. We were talking about. I think we had the White Sox down there as being bad. I think the Rockies and the Athletics. I think were like I think we were saying like they might be like the three worst teams in baseball. And the Athletics have actually, I think, surprised us a bit.
We had the White Sox obviously coming in last place.
Yeah,
We also said that the White Sox were gonna go under the PECOTA 66 win projection.
and I feel like that's probably spot on. Might be spot on.
We also thought that Cleveland was gonna come in 4th place in their division, though.
I feel like we didn't think they had the offense. I think that was the thing.
We
I
thought the
think we
Tigers were gonna win.
and they started off really good. I mean, like the Tigers started off good, and they just kind of they fell off. I mean, I feel like the Tigers were in our top 10 rankings for a little bit early on in the season. So I mean, that's not like a that prediction was definitely based off of their
Right.
success that they put together at like last year at the end of the season.
Now, I kinda wanna get into our studs and duds. For me, my stud, Jake Berger of the Marlins, their 3rd baseman. 6 games, that's 24 at bats that he had. He had 8 hits, so he's hitting .333, 8 strikeouts, but he had 4 home runs, 8 RBIs, and a 1.203 OPS. Really, really solid week from the Marlin. And then on the opposite side, you had the dud, Cal Quantrill, the Rockies pitcher. 0-1 in his 2 games started, 10 earned runs for an 11.25 ERA, 14 hits, 5 walks, 2 home runs, 6 strikeouts. Hitters were hitting .378 against him
Yeah,
over the last week.
White Sox needed to play him. Need to play
Yeah,
against him.
they'll turn him into Nolan Ryan.
That'd be he
And what
throws a
about you?
perfect game.
Honestly, what about you?
Well, I got for my stud, I got I think one of your favorite players and also one of my favorite players, Hunter Green.
Love Hunter Green.
Got to hit the win last week. 6 innings pitched, only gave up 1 hit, 1 walk, 11 strikeouts. I mean that's about as good as you're gonna get outside of throwing a no hitter or a perfect game. I
Right.
mean, he's fantastic, and I mean, I think one of I don't know if anyone predicted him like Cy Young winner, but I mean,
He was definitely talked about.
He's talked about. I mean, he
I
has
have
the
a
stuff.
future on it. I did bet him with a future, so I know that I definitely thought he had a
I
chance.
mean, yeah, he has the stuff too. I mean, last week proves it. I mean, those are dominant numbers. Now, someone who's not very dominant, Ha Sung Kim, went 0 for 16 with 2 walks and he struck out 4 times, which is that's bad.
That's not
That's
good.
just bad. And he's usually a pretty solid player, so I don't know what's going on with him. You know, sometimes when players play this bad, who are usually pretty good, sometimes you almost wonder if they have an injury that's going on that they haven't disclosed you know or anything. Because it's unusual when you have people go into slumps all the time, but it's like when players who are usually good have a thing, and if it lasts long, you wonder if it's like some kind of an injury.
Right.
Small one, just throws you off.
Which is what we thought about with Corbin Carroll earlier in the year too.
Yeah, and I think he did have an injury that he was just playing through. So it does have an effect. So you wonder sometimes if some of these slumps aren't mental, but it's like a physical thing bothering them.
Then lastly, let's get over to our weekly series highlight because Boston plays Kansas City. Now, it doesn't sound like a sexy pick, right? But Boston took 2 out of 3 right before the All-Star break. Kansas City is in the playoffs right now. Boston's only 2.5 out of a playoff spot. And Bobby Wood Jr., in his last 25 games, he's hitting 500. What words do you have for that? He's hitting 500. And he's got 48 hits since the beginning of July.
That's
Since July 1st, he's got 48 hits. Now, I was hoping that him and Steven Kwan would slow down because Aaron Judge is 3rd in the American League in batting average. But
I
I
don't
just
think
don't
that's
see that
happening.
happening. Like, how fun would it be if Judge was in a Triple Crown race? You have Bobby Wood at hitting 344, Steven Kwan at 333, Judge at 322. I think Judge is doing everything he's doing and hitting 322 on the year.
That's insane. I mean, with the home runs and RBIs on top of having a high average.
Judge's on base percentage is just about as high as Steven Kwan's slugging. So, I mean, there's only one player in the National League hitting above 300. Now, there's a couple players hitting 300, but there's only one National League player hitting above 300
like on the season?
on the season.
Is it Trey Turner?
It is not Trey Turner. He's not
No,
qualified.
he's not qualified. Oh, because
No.
he missed the games. But I know he is batting over 300 though.
Talking only qualified hitters.
Let's see.
Who's the only National League player hitting above 300? Again,
Above
we're not
300.
counting 300. We're
Yeah.
counting 301 and up.
Ooh.
And this player is only hitting 306.
306. Luis Arraez?
Luis Arraez is not above 300. Luis Arraez is actually hitting
He go down.
308, but he's not qualified.
See, I'm getting guys who I'm getting the guys who are hitting over 300, but they're not qualified.
Right.
Ohtani?
Ohtani's hitting 306.
There.
But you have Bobby Wood again, 344, Kwan 333, Judge 322, Vladdy 316, Soto 310, Devers 305, Altuve 302, Yordan Alvarez 301. Alec Boehm's hitting 295. He's the top Philly.
Yeah. He was hitting, I think, 300 before the All-Star break.
But I'm hoping that Bobby Witt Jr.'s numbers come down a little bit because it's kind of insane.
I don't know. I mean, sometimes when you're just on, you're on.
Who's got well, let's look at OPS on the season real quick. Can you name there's only 3 players, right, that have an OPS over 1,000? That's Judge at 1.157,
Yeah.
Soto at 1.035, and Ohtani at 1.018. Judge's OPS is 120 points higher than second place on the list. Just to give you some context, 120 points is the difference between Kyle Schwarber's OPS at 0.849 and fifth place at Bobby Witt at 980. So the difference between 1 and 2 is the difference between virtually 5 and 20, give or take a couple points.
That's actually crazy.
But what's your weekly series that you wanted to highlight? Because I think Red Sox at Kansas City is going to be an exciting matchup.
Well, I got one, and if the White Sox get swept by the Athletics, this weekly series might be a historical series here. It's going to be the Cubs playing the White Sox here, and if they lose this first game against the White Sox after they get swept, they will have the record for most losses in a row in the modern era of baseball. And we'll break the Phillies 61 team who lost 23 in a row.
That is insane.
And then we'll probably be the worst team ever to play go down one of the worst teams of baseball, if not the worst team ever.
It's kind of crazy how we're watching, no team is on pace for 100 wins. And you have a team on pace to have the worst record. So is baseball really good right now, or is baseball really bad right now?
I think that's it's based off what you think is good baseball.
What do you think?
So, I mean, obviously for me, I mean, watching and stuff, I mean, my team's good, been doing good this season. It's good baseball. I think a lot of it has to do with how they do the schedules, because I think doesn't everyone play everyone at least once?
Everybody plays everybody at least
And I
once.
think that changes a lot of the stuff. So I would argue that makes for some better baseball, because you get a lot of matchups maybe you would see maybe.
Yeah, but I know for the fact that the Yankees schedule gets easier because now we don't have to play, the AL East, which is always the hardest division. We get to play now the Rockies and the Marlins.
Yeah, but it evens out. Like we talked at the beginning of the year, like the Phillies had an easy schedule at the front, and they have a hard one at the end. The Yankees had one at the front,
Right.
Easy at the end. Like I said, beginning of the season, it evens out because everyone plays everybody. So you're gonna get the record you're gonna get.
Yeah, but
You
we'll
play
have to
everyone.
wait and see. We'll find out, this time next week if the White Sox got a win or if they are in the midst of the worst losing streak known to man in Major League Baseball
And then
history.
it's like, how far can they go then if they break it?
Yeah. Like I remember when Cleveland was on that big win streak back in 2017. I was rooting for them to keep winning until they got to the playoffs because of how fun that was to see that winning streak. I think ended up getting to like 23 games go. So it's going to be interesting to kind of root against the White Sox and see how long that can last
And
because
the question is, do they rubber band back after it?
not a chance. I think that they might start another 20-game losing streak. Because I think they had an earlier streak of 14 games lost earlier this year.
I think they did, yeah.
It's crazy. But that's going to do it for us. Corey Jason, John Pauline. This has been the Outsider Sports Baseball Podcast. Keep tuning in. Hockey, football, coming back. Baseball will be continuing right up through the World Series into free agency. Got a lot coming through you guys for the Outsider Sports Network. So just keep tuning in week to week and keep on supporting.